5:17 local time. A low metallic hum moves through the carrier as power shifts beneath the deck plates, steady and almost invisible, like the ship itself is drawing a deeper breath. On the bridge, no one raises their voice. They do not need to. The room is calm, controlled, and focused, the kind of quiet that only exists when everyone already knows exactly what their next step is supposed to be. New surface contacts, bearing 243. The radar picture begins to change. At first, it is one return, then another, then 3, then 5. Clean signatures, tight spacing, closing with purpose. Outside, the ocean looks almost peaceful. Flat blue water stretches all the way to the horizon, calm enough to make the moment feel ordinary. But the numbers tell a different story. Speeds increase. Bearings begin to settle. The closest point of approach narrows minute by minute. The rhythm of the watch shifts without drama, like a body tightening before it moves. Maintain course and speed. The order is quiet. It is entered into the log, time-stamped, acknowledged at every station. Down in the operations center, the watch team leans closer to their screens. Sensors move from broad observation into focused tracking. There are no dramatic tones, no sudden movement, no theatrics, only data, clean and constant, flowing from screen to screen. 5 surface contacts that had been moving almost side by side begin to spread into a shallow arc. Geometry matters at sea. It always has. The shape of a formation can say more than any radio call. Surface group maneuvering. On the bridge, the captain studies the plot without speaking. A slight nod follows. Another entry goes into the log. The carrier holds her pace. Her wake stays straight and narrow behind the stern, as if the ocean itself is being marked by discipline. On the flight deck, routine movement slows. Yellow shirts pause mid-step, eyes lifting toward the horizon, waiting for the next call that may or may not come. Aircraft remain chained, folded, quiet, ready but not displayed, present but not turned into a message. Range decreasing, closest approach inside 5. No one reacts outwardly. The ship has practiced this exact rhythm again and again. Observe, verify, record. The difference between professional posture and unnecessary provocation can be measured in seconds, degrees, and tone of voice. A radio hail goes out, professional, brief, unemotional, no response. The contacts close another mile. One turns slightly to starboard, cutting its angle. Another holds nearly dead ahead, speed steady. The remaining 3 drift wider, creating space where space should not have been needed. It is deliberate. It is coordinated. It is careful enough to be explained later, but clear enough to be understood now. Conditions set. The words are short, and everyone understands them at once. Stations are manned. Cameras are live. Every movement is captured from multiple angles. Every bearing change becomes part of the record. This is not a display. It is preparation through accuracy. Below decks, the carrier feels different. Not louder, sharper. The low vibration of machinery seems more precise, almost as if the ship knows it is being listened to. Sailors move with economy. Nothing is wasted. There is no rush because there is no confusion. Contact 2 accelerating. Contact 4 altering course. The plot tightens again. 5 hulls now define a loose ring. Each one maintains a careful margin. None of them crosses the line. Not yet. But the space between them begins to shrink, not simply in distance, but in available choices. Another hail goes out, shorter this time. Still nothing. On the bridge wing, binoculars come up. Gray shapes on the horizon sharpen into steel profiles. National markings are not the first thing called out. Hull forms come first, mast arrangements, silhouettes, signatures that match stored references. Confirmation comes last, because on a ship like this, assumptions are never allowed to lead. Surface group identified. For half a beat, the word hangs in the air. Then the watch continues. No commentary, no visible reaction. Identification changes the paperwork. It does not change the procedure. Intent remains the unanswered question. One of the ships angles close enough now to be seen clearly. Crew can be seen on deck. No dramatic posture is visible. No obvious signal that the situation has crossed into something else. Just speed, alignment, presence. Enough to send a message without saying it out loud. Closest approach now under 3. The captain finally speaks. His voice remains level. Log all maneuvers. Maintain. The carrier does exactly that. She does not drift. She does not turn away. She does not push forward aggressively. She holds the line she entered on, trusting mass, discipline, and math. Minutes pass like seconds. The contacts hover along the edge of what is acceptable, pressing without touching. The air is full of questions no one asks aloud, because that is not how this works. At sea, the most important questions are often answered by course, speed, and patience. Range steady. The words land heavier than any alarm could have. Steady means choice. It means someone on the other side is watching just as closely, measuring just as carefully. Out on the water, 5 wakes carve pale lines across the blue, all converging toward a carrier that refuses to blink. No dramatic signals, no sudden turns, no visible overreaction, just motion, just intent. And everyone aboard understands that the next few minutes will decide whether this remains a clean entry in the record or becomes something much harder to explain. 0521 local time. The geometry changes on the plot. The 5 contacts no longer move as one shape. They separate with purpose, each hull sliding into a position that narrows the carrier's options without openly declaring that intent. One holds steady off the port bow. Another eases wide to starboard. 2 drift aft, matching speed. The 5th remains farther out, positioned almost like an observer, close enough to see everything and far enough to remain flexible. Surface group adjusting formation. It is stated once, then logged. No emphasis, no added interpretation. This is not a rush. It is a squeeze. Distances remain within acceptable margins. Bearings remain clean. Every maneuver stays just inside the space where intent can be denied afterward. That is what makes it serious. Nothing is technically out of place, yet everything is strategically arranged. On the bridge, the captain's eyes remain on the plot. The carrier continues along her original track, wake unbroken. A carrier does not dodge shadows. She makes others decide what they are truly willing to do next. Another radio hail goes out, identical in tone to the first. Short, professional. Routine in sound, even when the moment is anything but routine. No reply. Down in the operations center, the watch team follows minute changes. One contact increases speed by 2 knots, then settles back. Another changes heading by 5 degrees, just enough to test reaction time. The data stream fills with numbers that only matter when seen together. Contact 3 matching course. That is new. Matching course means commitment. It means the distance will not naturally open unless someone chooses to make it open. On the flight deck, the pause deepens. Chains remain locked. Control surfaces stay folded. There is no visible sign of urgency, but the choreography has changed. Everyone knows where they are supposed to be if the next call comes. Until then, they wait. The sea itself begins to feel smaller. Crowded by steel, wakes overlap. The horizon tightens, boxed in by converging lines of motion. From above, it would look less like confusion and more like a diagram drawn with care. Closest approach holding at 2.8. Holding is intentional. It is a reminder that someone else is driving this moment too. One of the ships angles inward, crossing the carrier's projected path at a safe distance, then levels out again. Close enough to read hull numbers through optics. Far enough to avoid a clear claim of interference. A message delivered without words. Visual confirmed. No hard posture visible. The absence is noted. At sea, what is not shown can matter just as much as what is shown. The captain gives a small hand signal. Another entry hits the log. Cameras keep recording. Nothing is missed. Nothing is exaggerated. This is where mistakes usually happen. Too much speed. Too sharp a turn. A signal read too quickly. The bridge remains quiet because quiet prevents errors. Everyone aboard understands the rules without needing to recite them. Another contact drifts aft, settling near the carrier's quarter. It is not blocking. It is accompanying. A shadow that refuses to fall back. Surface group now in loose encircling formation. Loose but effective. Each ship occupies a piece of water that forces calculation. The carrier could turn, but that would concede the shape around her. She could accelerate, but that would change the story. So she holds. Speed constant. Course steady. Time stretches. The radio crackles once. Static. Nothing more. Then silence returns. Whether deliberate or incidental, the effect is the same. At 0527, one of the outer ships reduces speed, dropping back just far enough to keep spacing clean. The others compensate almost instantly. The ring tightens without appearing to tighten. It is practiced. It has the feel of something rehearsed long before this morning. Formation stable. Those 2 words carry weight. On deck, a breeze brings the smell of fuel and salt. Sailors glance toward the waterline, then back to their tasks. No one stares. Staring invites tension. Tension invites mistakes. Another subtle move follows. A slight course correction from the lead contact mirrored seconds later by a second hull. The carrier remains centered, a constant in a shifting equation. Closest approach unchanged. The captain speaks again, barely above a normal tone. We maintain. It is not defiance, it is policy. The carrier's mass, her steady wake, her refusal to answer pressure with visible reaction, these are choices as deliberate as any maneuver around her. They turn the net into a question instead of an answer. The 5 ships hold their positions, close enough to be felt, far enough to remain clean. No horns, no dramatic lights, no sudden moves. Just 5 wakes curving slightly inward and a carrier sailing straight through the middle. forcing everyone present to consider what the next move would actually cost. 0531 local time. This is where the moment becomes more delicate. The distance stops shrinking, but it does not open either. 5 ships hold their lanes with careful precision, close enough to influence the carrier's movement without physically interfering with it. The water between them becomes shared space, measured, watched, contested without being claimed. Surface group maintaining positions. Maintaining means intent. It means no one is improvising. Inside the operations center, the watch posture changes again. Sensors that had been observing now follow with greater focus. Tracks harden, bearings update faster. Nothing crosses a formal threshold, but everything inches closer to 1. Recommend continuous recording. Already done. The carrier stays steady, speed constant. Course unchanged. Her wake remains a straight white line through blue water that now feels crowded with purpose. There is no visible show meant for cameras. The message is embedded in consistency. One ship on the starboard side edges closer, a fraction of a mile at a time. Subtle enough to explain later. Clear enough to be noticed immediately. Closest approach now, 2.5. Still safe. Barely comfortable. The bridge remains quiet. The captain's hands rest near the chart table, his eyes moving between the horizon and the plot. He does not need commentary. He needs accuracy. Another radio hail goes out. Routine words, neutral tone. The kind used 100 times a week in calmer waters. No response. Silence at this range is not absence. It is a choice. At 0534, one of the aft contacts increases speed briefly, then matches again. It is a probe, a timing check. How quickly will the carrier answer? The answer is immediate and invisible. She holds. The carrier does not chase shadows. She does not react for the sake of being seen reacting. Her response is the absence of unnecessary movement. On the flight deck, the choreography tightens further. Crews reposition without hurry. Nothing breaks the calm surface. Anyone watching through optics would see control, not anxiety. But readiness is exactly what is happening. The 5 ships now form a loose crescent, each maintaining spacing that keeps the carrier centered. The geometry is unmistakable. It is a pressure posture carried out with discipline. Encirclement geometry holding. Holding is the problem. Holding means time. Time invites mistakes. The sea reflects the tension. Overlapping wakes leave confused patterns behind each hull, lines crossing and fading as if the water itself cannot decide which way to flow. Above it all, the carrier's island stands unmoving, a fixed point inside a shifting field. Another adjustment comes from the port side. One ship cuts slightly inward, crossing the projected track at a respectful distance, then settles back. No contact risk, no obvious violation, just presence amplified by proximity. Closest approach logged. Every move is timestamped, every bearing archived. This is not about winning a single moment. It is about owning the record if the moment is questioned later. Inside the operations center, voices stay flat. Numbers are called, confirmed, and reconfirmed. No one speculates. Speculation has no place here. Surface group maintaining ambiguous posture. That word, ambiguous, is not accidental. It defines the exact space they are in. Too close to ignore, too clean to confront. At 0537, the outermost ship alters heading by a few degrees, opening a small lane that did not exist a moment earlier. For the first time, the ring breathes. Not much, just enough to notice. Contact 5 drifting. Is it withdrawal or repositioning? The data does not answer yet. The carrier keeps moving, unchanged. Her steadiness forces clarity onto everyone else. Any further pressure would become obvious. Any step back would also be visible. Minutes pass. The tension does not spike. It settles into something heavier. Expectation. On deck, a sailor glances at the horizon, then back to his station. No one speaks. Speaking would break the rhythm. Another small change. The starboard side ship eases off half a knot. The aft contact mirrors it seconds later. The formation loosens without fully unraveling. Speed reduction observed. It is logged, not interpreted. The ambiguity remains, but it is thinner now. Someone somewhere is recalculating. The carrier sails on, a constant amid shifting intent. She neither advances nor yields. She simply exists in the space offered to her, forcing the moment to decide what it wants to become. No alarms, no raised voices, no dramatic gestures, just 5 ships, 1 carrier, and a stretch of ocean where the next choice by anyone will define the entire morning. 0540 local time. The pressure does not break, it shifts. On the plot, the carrier remains the constant. 5 surface contacts still occupy their lanes, still close enough to matter, but something subtle begins to change. Not in raw distance, not even in speed. The change is in relationship. Surface group reacting to what is not yet obvious. Inside the operations center, the watch team sees it first. The carrier's data picture tightens, not outward, but inward. Feeds align, timelines sync. The ship is not adding noise to the moment, it is removing variables. Carrier maintaining track. Secondary systems synchronized, no announcement follows, none is needed. On the flight deck, movement resumes. Not suddenly, not dramatically, deliberately. Crews reposition with purpose. Doors open and close, ladders clear. Nothing suggests a desire to raise the temperature of the encounter. Everything suggests readiness. The 5 ships adjust again, compensating for something they did not expect to have to compensate for. One holds position longer than planned. Another delays a correction by seconds. It is minor. It is enough. Contact 2, late on maneuver. Late means hesitation. The carrier does not turn into the pressure. She does not accelerate through it either. Instead, her steadiness becomes the move. By refusing to alter course, she forces every other hull to define its own intent clearly. The outermost ship increases speed briefly, then backs it off. The maneuver does not challenge. It does not withdraw. It searches for a response that never comes. Carrier unchanged. That phrase lands heavier now. From the bridge wings, optics track the nearest hull. Sailors are visible topside, moving but not preparing anything obvious. No one runs. No one makes a dramatic signal. The absence of theater becomes its own message. The formation loosens, not by declaration, but by necessity. To maintain the same pressure, the ships would need sharper angles and tighter spacing. That would move the encounter into territory no one seems ready to enter. Surface group spacing increasing. The ring is not gone, but it is no longer closing. At 0544, the ship that had been holding aft drops back another half-mile. It keeps a parallel course, still matching the general movement, but the shadow lengthens. It is the first unmistakable concession of space. Contact 4, opening range. No comment follows. The carrier continues forward, wake straight, line unbroken. This is the moment the surrounding ships did not fully anticipate. Not a push, not a challenge. A refusal to participate in the geometry designed around her. The carrier does not play the shape offered to her. She denies it by remaining steady inside it. Another adjustment follows from port. A ship angles outward, easing pressure without announcing withdrawal. It is careful. It preserves dignity. It also changes everything. Encirclement degrading. Degrading does not mean ending. It means failing to sustain. Minutes earlier, the 5 ships controlled the space through proximity. Now that same proximity begins to cost them clarity. Every move to tighten looks more deliberate. Every move to hold risks stagnation. Every move to open looks like release. The carrier stays the same. On the bridge, the captain finally shifts his stance. Not in reaction, but in acknowledgement. The situation has entered a new phase, not resolved, rebalanced. At 0547, a radio transmission breaks the silence. Not a hail to the carrier, not a public message, just a brief burst of traffic among the surface contacts themselves. The content is not the important part, the timing is. They are coordinating. That too is logged. The formation spreads further. No longer a ring, now a loose arc. Enough distance opens to restore maneuvering freedom without admitting that anything has changed. It is a compromise written in water and wake. Closest approach increasing. That is the first time those words have been spoken in nearly half an hour. The carrier remains on course, unhurried and unaffected. She does not capitalize on the space. She does not chase the opening. She simply allows it to exist. One by one, the ships settle into parallel tracks. Still nearby, still watching, but no longer shaping the moment. The pressure fades not with a snap, but with a slow release. No signals are exchanged. No gestures are made. The sea widens again. The unexpected move was not a maneuver. It was not a display. It was discipline. By refusing to alter, the carrier forced every other decision into the open. And when clarity became unavoidable, the moment chose restraint over risk. The wakes stretch out behind all 6 ships now, no longer converging, no longer overlapping, just lines on the water slowly separating. And with that separation comes the quiet understanding that this encounter has reached its limit without ever announcing it had won. 0552 local time. The ocean begins to look wide again. On the plot, the 5 surface contacts no longer define a single shape. They occupy separate lanes now, each hull maintaining its own water and its own spacing. Still close enough to track, no longer close enough to dictate. Surface group dispersing. Dispersing is not retreat, it is resolution without admission. The carrier continues on her original heading, speed unchanged. There is no course correction to mark the end of the encounter. No visible signal that anything has shifted at all. That is intentional. A carrier does not announce survival. She records the moment and moves on. On the bridge, the watch resumes its normal cadence. Bearings update less urgently now. Ranges open by tenths of a mile at a time. The tension that filled the air minutes earlier does not disappear. It settles, becoming quieter and heavier. Closest approach increasing across all contacts. The words carry finality. Below decks, systems step back toward baseline without ceremony. Recording continues. Logs are reviewed, cross-checked, time-stamped. Every maneuver, every hesitation, every degree of heading change is preserved. The true outcome of this encounter will live there, in the record, not on the surface. On the flight deck, chains remain locked. Aircraft stay folded. Nothing had to launch to make the point. That is noted too. The 5 ships keep their distance now, maintaining parallel tracks for a while, as if making sure the moment has truly passed. One by one, they begin to fall astern. Their wakes stretch thinner, less defined. Contact 1 reducing speed, then another. The carrier does not respond. She does not match them. She does not watch them leave. Her responsibility is forward. By 0600, the formation that once tightened around her exists only as data points on a screen, drifting farther apart with every update. The ocean between them returns to open water, no longer a shared calculation. The encounter ends the way it began, without a single dramatic action to sell the story. No sudden signals, no loud commands, no visible hard posture, just disciplined movement and disciplined restraint. Inside the operations center, the watch officer signs off on the final entry. The timeline is complete. From first contact to separation, every minute has been accounted for. No commentary is added. The facts are enough. On the bridge, the captain takes one last look at the plot, then gives a nearly invisible nod. The ship keeps moving. This is what resolution looks like at sea. Not victory declared, not defeat conceded, just space restored and choices deferred. The 5 ships remain visible on the horizon for a while longer, silhouettes shrinking in the morning light. Eventually, even those fade, leaving only the carrier's wake behind her, a straight and unbroken line pointing forward. For those aboard, the meaning of the moment is not measured by how close it came to becoming something else. It is measured by how deliberately it did not. The discipline to hold course. The patience to let ambiguity reveal itself. The understanding that control does not always need to announce itself loudly. Long after the ships separate, the data will be studied, angles will be reviewed, timing will be compared, lessons will be drawn without emotion. That is where encounters like this truly end. Out here, no one asks who won. The better question is quieter, simpler, and far more difficult. In an encounter where no one raised their voice, no one changed course, and no one allowed the moment to outrun discipline, who actually controlled the sea?